All right, now, where should you come to teach English in Brazil? Where should you hang your shingle? There are a lot of places. I mean, the biggest markets by far are Sao Paulo and Rio. And you may already have decided I'm going to Rio. Okay, that's fine. Sao Paulo is if you're just really interested in making money, Sao Paulo is probably the place to go. Rio, you'll make a bit less, and you may find rents to be a little higher there. But and some people are telling me that the market there is saturated. I taught in Rio for 4.5 years, but it's been a while since I've lived there, so I'm not sure exactly what the current market would be like. But decide where you want to go, and the fact of the matter is you don't need that many students to cover your bills each month. So I wouldn't worry too much if somebody says the market is saturated. I'm going to show you how to market yourself and put your best foot forward, how to find students and turn those students into more students. So I wouldn't worry too much about that. But do think beyond Sao Paulo and Rio. Most of the state capitals are good places to look. There are a few that I'd avoid, like Recife, I mentioned in another video, has a bad reputation for crime. So although it's a large city, I would probably pass on that one. But where I am here right now, I'm spending a month in a place called João Pessoa, Joao Pessoa, João Pessoa in the Northeast. It's a lovely city of 700, 800,000, and kind of off the radar. But there's a need here. I've been told, by Uber drivers and taxi drivers here. Oh yeah, we get tourists, more from Europe than from North America, but they get tourists here, and there's a market here. Well, that's true in a lot of cities, and there are cities where perhaps they have petrochemical business or tourism, or they do import-export with other countries. There are a lot of cities in the state of Sao Paulo, for example, that would be good. So do a little research and think about where you'd want to be. What is it you want? Do you want to be near the beach? Well, there are plenty of cities there that would qualify. What's most important to you? Think too about what kind of contacts you may have in Brazil. Do you already have some Brazilian friends? Talk to them. Would they live in a city that would be interesting for you? Because it really helps when you come down here to have some contacts already. It helps you to kind of integrate into the city, resolve those initial problems that we all have to go through, finding those initial students that will help you find others. So if you already have some contacts in Brazil, that might lead you to where you want to hang your shingle. But there are lots of places. Now, I do want to give you one caveat. You probably want to stay with a large or mid-size city. I made the mistake after I'd been working in Rio for about 3 years. I was just burnt out. I had so much work. I was running around so much, I got burnt out. So I moved to a small town south of Rio called Paraty, and it's I've been there before. I visited. There's lots of tourism there. It's on the backpacker trails, and it's in all of the guidebooks and everything. And I said, people here need English. I'm going to go down there, and I'll just start over again, but it won't take long. Well, it didn't work out that way. I didn't find a lot of students. And there are a couple of problems when you're in smaller cities. One, expenses will be less than they are in large cities, but maybe not like much less. Maybe they're 25% less, 30% less. So, they're less, but they're not a whole lot less. Salaries, however, tend to be much, much less in smaller towns than they do in the big cities. And what that means is what people can pay and what you can charge is likely to be much, much less than you could get in a big city. So, while your monthly expenses may be 70% of what they would be in Sao Paulo, if you're making less than 50% of what you would be in Sao Paulo, you can see that that's going to cause some problems, relatively speaking. So if you really want to live in a small town, maybe you've got your eye on one that you just fell in love with, before you make the commitment, before you move there, do your homework. Do a straw man budget. Find out, pretty good idea of what your monthly expenses will be. And that's not hard to do. Go to sites like numbeo.com. That's a good place to start. And do a little checking online. Expat.com is another good site. Quora. Do some inquiries, and you can get a pretty good idea of what it would cost to live there, and also maybe how much you could make. Now, what you can make per hour, and then it's up to you. How many students you can pull in, right? But I'd be speaking from personal experience. I would be really careful about going to smaller towns. I think it's better to, as you're getting started, to look at larger cities. Now, the other thing you can do, and this is what I do, actually, is kind of geographic arbitrage, by which I mean my students are in the bigger cities with the bigger salaries, they can pay more, and I tend to live in smaller towns, actually kind of gallivant around, but I tend to stay in the smaller places that are cheaper. So that's another strategy that you can follow. Anyway, that's hopefully gives you some idea of where you might look for work here, where you might want to live in Brazil. But there are a lot of options.